Hello, mobility athletes, and welcome back. We are starting our nutrition series with the owner of Nutrition's My Life, Nicole, and she has been a registered dietitian for 10 years, and she started out in the neonatal intensive care unit, which means that she was literally keeping babies alive for a living. But going through her own health journey, she migrated into really gut health, which is a new fun term that we're going to really dive into, thyroid, hormones, and really boosting your immune system. She is a huge advocate for activity as well as really making sure that you maintain a healthy lifestyle while you're being active as possible. So welcome, Nicole. We're excited to have you today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really pumped to be here.
So tell us, how did you even migrate into the world of nutrition and being a dietitian? How did that come about?
Oh, no, it's a great question. So I started out in high school in the health, right? That little, whatever, most high schools have like that health little department. You can go that way. And so seeing all the surgeries and going in, and it was just like, I loved it. Loved it. So when I went to college, I actually was a nursing major until I played soccer in college as well. And I had a physical and they found a lump in my throat. And so the doctor was like, have you always had a lump there? And I was like, what lump? I had even no idea that I had a lump in my throat. And that's when they found out my thyroid was precancerous and needed to be removed. So they ended up removing half my thyroid my freshman year and in college. And I realized at that point, like, man, there's a lot of stuff like that could be causing this. And so I looked and dug further, and nutrition kind of was like the thing that kept popping up over and over again. And so my own health like kind of sparked my route into becoming a dietitian. And then it totally, like you had mentioned, it also became like why I became, an entrepreneur as well. It's just for that sheer fact of, hey, I've been there. I've walked through your, where you have been as well. I've been a health warrior. Let me show you how to do it.
I think you bring up an interesting fact. So majority of people think that, especially you being an athlete in college, I mean, obviously you were very talented in order to be able to play and be recruited. And they think that automatically that entails health. But there are things that are also outside of our control, but that can impact our health. But then you also talked about things being inside of your control. So can you talk about some of the things, even running into athletes, we run into all the time, athletes that are overworking their system. Adrenal fatigue has become a huge term,
Yes.
Especially in our CrossFit space. Can you talk a little bit about really what athletes need to be keeping in balance as they train this hard to make sure they're truly healthy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the times when I see athletes in my practice as well, it's like you said, the adrenal fatigue. They end up kind of pushing themselves like above and beyond the limit, and that's something that like we were trained, and it's kind of drilled into us like in high school and during the starting of it. You can just push through, just keep pushing through. You got this. You can keep pushing. Just go a little bit further, go a little bit further. But then real life happens. And then you get all these other stressors that we're not used to, like, owning your own business, or, owning your car, or just adulting in general, being a parent. And so a lot of times we get these other stressors, and then we put our body through even more stress when it comes to physical exercise. And so we have this emotional stress, and we can even have a chemical stress, but then we have this physical stress that we're putting our body under. And a lot of times we're not allowing our bodies to repair itself, or we're not giving the body the tools to repair itself. And so what we're doing is just kind of digging ourselves into a deeper hole, because when we're stressed, our blood flow gets shunted from our intestines to our muscles, which is a really, really helpful thing for if we come across a bear and we need to fight or flight, right? But what happens a lot of times is that we stay in this state of stress, the state of overwhelm. And so a lot of that blood flow just continues to stay in the muscles, which is great. But then we get these like byproducts of cortisol breakdown, which is why we're stressed, which builds up lactic acid in the muscle, which is going to be even harder to work out later. But also then you start having all of these digestive issues, where you start all of a sudden, like man, I used to be able to eat this food and now I can't tolerate it anymore. Or you feel like we have these new allergies all of a sudden. But in reality, it's more stress related than a food related issue.
I talk a lot of times because, at Mobility Athletes, obviously I program customized warm-ups. So if people get to the gym 15 minutes early, it's really things that they should be doing for their own selves to be ready to work out and be safe. And I say all the time, I'm like, stress is stress is stress.
Yeah.
So if you sit all day at your job, even if you're just sitting there at your desk and Susie next to you is ticking you off the whole day and you're mad at her, you're worried about whether your boss is going to come down and yell at you about something, you're not meeting your project deadline, whatever it is, all of that stress builds up. And so then I'm like, if you walk into the gym and your stress level's already here, your body doesn't really know the difference. And then you add more stress on top of it, you're just asking for that system to break down. How is it that nutrition can play a role in that? So what are things that people really need to be aware of or be putting into their bodies when they're in maybe those like stress cycles? Maybe there's things that are not necessarily as controllable as what they would like. What are things that they can be doing to kind of support that system better?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of a two-step process where we have to do all of these other stress reducing techniques at the same time as we're introducing these foods. Because if we're just introducing these helpful foods, we're basically having expensive poop, right? It's just going to go right through us. We're not going to be absorbing anything. It's just going to it is what it is, right? So like you said, there's all these stressors throughout the day. So when you start to realize like, oh my gosh, my stress level is going up a little bit, that's when we start to realize, oh, maybe I need to do some deep, belly breaths at work. Maybe I need to walk around the building on my lunch break and start to get your body in a state to where it's not living in that, what I like to call freak out mode. And so we can get our body into repair mode. And so the repair mode only happens when we are in this calmer state. So we have to do these meditations, these walks, dance parties, whatever you want to do to lower your cortisol level. But then we can start incorporating these foods. So some of the foods that are really helpful are foods that are going to support the body's like natural stress system. So when we're stressed, our bodies burn through omega-3 fatty acids and magnesium at a higher rate than we are when we're just happy-go-lucky walking around. And so we're going to need a higher demand for our omega-3 fatty acids in. So we think, oh, we're taking a fish oil, woohoo, we're good. Well, that's not going to be enough because like you said, oh, Sharon stressed me out at work. Oh, someone cut me off while I was driving, right? Any little moment that you have that stress, I like to think about like, okay, I need to repair that. I need to figure out a way to kind of crowd out that bad with the good. And so I'm going to start adding in. So I have a handful of walnuts in the morning, or if something happens later on in the day, I'll, grab or put some flaxseed into the spaghetti. I'm constantly figuring out ways to add in more healthy fats so that way my body can repair itself and kind of calm down, because inflammation is like a trigger for stress, and stress is a trigger for inflammation. And so that omega-3 fatty acids, the job of that is to help out with reducing that inflammation, as well as some of the hormone stuff that, a little bit more science in depth, but there's more hormone issues that can happen when we're depleted in our healthy fats. And so something easy to get like more magnesium in, so that way we start feeling better as well, is like, I encourage people, take an Epsom salt bath. When you're highly stressed, take an Epsom salt bath. That's, one way to get it in. Then we can start incorporating more magnesium with, avocados are a great source of magnesium and omega-3 fatty acids. So when people are super stressed, I'm like, eat an avocado a day. I don't care about the calories. Don't worry about anything with that. It's going to help you. And like, it's so funny when I get all my clients be like, oh my gosh, I'm eating so much more than I typically was, and I'm losing weight and I have more energy and all this. I'm like, yeah, because you're giving your body what it needs. We're not focusing on calories. We're focusing on how are these foods supporting my body. And a lot of these foods are naturally low in calories too. So all these antioxidants are another great source to help out with this. So like I mentioned about inflammation, when we're stressed, our body is just going through inflammation and actually making more free radicals, which can damage our cells. So antioxidants are these little scavengers that go out and that are found in foods, and they basically eat those free radicals, reverse the damage of our cells. So we eat more color, eat the rainbow, we're gonna have more antioxidants, less stress, and then, or less inflammation and then less stress. So it's kind of a lot of things that help out. There's multiple layers. I like to kind of think of it as like most people can be on like an anti-inflammatory diet, and then we kind of layer up from there. So then we add in more of those maybe walnuts, more of that flaxseed. And then that's when we start to target and using food as medicine. So we have to have this baseline as well. So we can't forget to eat our veggies.
Yeah. Man, you said so many great things. I literally was taking notes because I'm like, oh, I got to go back to all these things. Very first thing that you talked about though, and this is one of the things I love about your practice as I was diving in and we were talking about doing this interview, is that it's not just food for you. It's a whole lifestyle for you. So you are talking to your clients about what it is that they're experiencing in life. You're talking to them about meditation, about, like you said, just doing things that they enjoy. I know you just said that you got back from a walk.
Yes.
And I think sometimes as especially my audience is a lot of people that are athletes from all different ranges. So recreational people that just enjoy to compete, but they're maybe training an hour a day, all the way up to professional athletes that are training 6+ hours a day. And so as we look at those people, sometimes we're so focused on our training that we forget to do those lighthearted movement things. Like we forget to enjoy going on a walk. We forget to sit down and like take a deep breath.
Yes. Yeah. Look at the birds that are flying around you, like reconnect to nature. And a lot of this too is because of like, we're electrical beings, like we're made of mostly these negative ions. And so a lot of these things are giving us too much of other components, other chemicals on electromagnetic charge. And so going out in nature really does regenerate us, and it charges us up, because that's where we're supposed to be. We're meant to be outside. We're meant to get into the sun, but a lot of us are indoors training, right? And so that just kind of another thing that triggered me to thinking of, if you're training 6 hours a day, and if it's inside or you're working inside, you're not going outside, if your vitamin D is in the toilet, you're going to you're going to be tired. You're not going to be, feeling good. You're going to have more risk of infection, disease, all this stuff kind of setting in. So I would challenge everyone to go outside a little bit more, or, go see a doctor or someone to make sure that their vitamin D level is okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I have a functional medicine doctor, and my vitamin D, my vitamin K, my magnesium, and then I actually had some of the markers to starting diabetes. So like the markers that they watch for like, we predict in 10 years you will like progress to pre-diabetic, and then, so on and so forth. And so, and all these things, I'm like, how is that even possible? I'm healthy. I mean, like, I could do what everybody else, I always have like 5 to 7 pounds to lose. I could eat more vegetables, but it's not like I'm out of control, eating out every night. I work out 5 to 7 days a week, all of this stuff. And, it really was though about like my stress level that I was just maintaining every day, day in and day out. And I wasn't taking time just to listen to my own thoughts or reconnect with nature, like you were saying, or go for a walk. I felt like I had to, if I'm going to work out today, I have 1 hour, I got to go hard. That's all I've got time for. And then I'm going to run home and I'm going to get on my computer and I'm going to bust out some work and then chase my kid around. And it was,
we set like these high expectations for ourselves. And especially if you're like, most of my followers have some sort of health condition, right? So if you have an underlying health condition and you're just pushing, you're just asking to be, in a worst case scenario, very, very soon, you're just going to be, draining yourself. And so a lot of times, I tell my clients, like, if you can get 5 push-ups in the morning, great. And then, later on, and you can do some wall sits, great. Like I'm not a personal trainer or physical therapist or anything, but just getting some sort of movement in, it
Mm-hmm.
all adds up. It doesn't really matter. And so when you're feeling like, oh, I'm tight, I've been sitting for a long time, I put on music, and we have dance parties. It doesn't really matter what's going on, but a lot of times too is like we get this like negative, like, oh, this energy, and it just kind of actually can be stagnant in us. And there's studies that show that negative energy can actually cause physical pain. And so some of our injuries that we're thinking, oh, like I have this injury, it could be just something that you haven't dealt with, in the past. So it's just crazy how much there's so much. Like I said, I want to say food is everything, but we have to get your body in a state to be able to accept this food. So
Yeah.
there's so much that we can do to help out.
I think that's what's really cool about clinicians and myself growing in the field is that I want to say that like physical therapy, recovery, proper movement is everything. Like if you can do that, it's the key to really unlocking your success. But the more you look at the research, and the reason that I think research kind of goes back and forth. So if you just look at just a nutrition study, sometimes things look really good. Sometimes they look different. And it's because we're human beings. So
Yeah.
if any of those people were doing anything else that either counteracted or improved or whatever, then all of that affects the study. And so that's why I love collaborating and talking to other individuals, because I think the key to unlocking a human being's success and health is a whole approach. Like you've got to look at everything, and you want to work with different clinicians that are looking at everything, because then there's all that little overlap.
Yes, no, 100%. It has to be, because that's what happened with me. Like I was going to the doctors over and over again, and they'd be like, "Oh, your labs are in like great, like in a good level, like they're optimal." And I'm like, "Well, I don't feel good. I don't feel right." And my endocrinologist was like, "Well, your levels are great. You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you." And I'm like, "You're not listening to me." And so you do get those like narrow-minded, professionals. And so it is really, really helpful when you can say like, "Oh, I have the power to fire my own doctor. I have the power to do this. And if I'm not getting the answers I want, I can take my health back into my own hands. I can, go and find the answers I want." Because, when you're talking about those studies, a lot of those studies, and the reason why nutrition has a hard time with a lot of these studies is that we can't follow someone's diet for 10 years or a mass study for 20 years and think that someone's going to stick to this like way of eating the entire time. And so that's how, like, it's like, oh, well, these medications can be,
Yes.
given out and studied really fast. And so the FDA has all these really, really tight guidelines, but then we can't reproduce that, because for healing, a lot of times, like when someone has like an unhealthy gut or when they're really stressed, it can take 6 to 9 months, and that's a long time for someone to like stick with it, and go on. So it can be difficult if you don't have, someone who's able to who's been there or has had the experience to be like, okay, yes, I know that what you're going through, and here's some other steps that we can do in addition to help you out.
I think what you just said about medications, oh my gosh, that is huge. I had never even thought about it in that perspective, that it makes total sense
Mhm.
that this research, which is nutrition, which is individual based, which is, I mean, it is difficult to adhere. Is it great? Will it change your life? 100%. But also, as a great dietitian, I'm sure you know that there's ups and downs
Yeah.
always with people, and that's just the natural flow of things. But to wake up in the morning and take these 2 pills, it's very regimented.
Mhm.
Typically, a lot more people can stick to that with like this clinical
Oh yeah.
research style consistency. And so I never thought about that, but that makes total sense why they can show all these 10, 20, 30-year studies, and everyone's like, well, the medication works. The medication works. And they don't really, they know the activity, they know nutrition is important, but our parameters are so crazy. It's like used to be 20 minutes a day. Now it's 60 minutes a day. Now it's like you have to do high intensity interval training is the best thing to do for 30 minutes for 4 of your days of the week. Like it's crazy. But it makes sense. And the more confusing the information that's out there from us makes it overwhelming for the general population. Wow, that was revolutionary.
Oprah aha moment.
Yeah,
That's what I like to call it. But it's also, like you said, confusing because there are some, especially in the nutrition world. I mean, you probably get it too with some personal trainers that you're like, why are you giving that information out? That's
yep.
very dangerous, you know? And so, you know, there's, you know, nutritionists. A lot of people can call themselves a nutritionist after they take an online course, but, you know, it's not like, okay, well, I've had a handful of people that had come to me from doing like the keto diet, and now their hormones are even worse. And I'm just like, okay, guys, like, I get you want this quick fix, but the quick fix that you're going to get is your mindset. That's how you look at your body, how you look at food, how your relationship with food is. And so once you start to realize that, that's when you're like, oh, okay, things are easier, and I can still see, you know, maybe I'm not at the pounds lost, or maybe I'm not at the weight I want, or whatever it be, but I have a better outlook and I can see how this is affecting me. And so that's really what I like to do with my clients is like, we get on our sessions, and that's the first thing that we do is celebrate, like, what was something, even if it was just you eating breakfast and you were typically a breakfast skipper, like, let's celebrate something together so we can refocus on all this amazing things that you're doing, because it does take such a long time to heal and to see some of these changes, that you have to see some of the, you know, the silver lining basically to what you're doing.
So let's talk a little bit about the registered dietitian and nutritionist. I think I've worked with some registered dietitians that run the gamut. I've worked with nutritionists that run the gamut. So I'll tell you a little bit of background as far as physical therapy, how I think about like the whole cycle of things and the team that I'm trying to create as far as movement. So a physical therapist is licensed state by state, and they would see somebody that would be in an injury cycle or post-surgery, or someone that would be like at high risk. And then we kind of move around the cone, and what we see is like this idea of a gray zone where someone like might be at injury risk. They're testing, like they're just not moving well. And then that could fall in someone that's a really good strength and conditioning coach that's done a lot of con ed with movement. They've done a lot of like background there, or a physical therapist that kind of enjoys that wellness field, and usually a collaboration between the two, because physical therapists, we tend to look, like myself included, I tend to look at like, ooh, is that joint moving well? Oh, is that person at risk for injury from how they just like made that cut? Where a strength and conditioning coach looks like performance aspect. And then we kind of move to the other side, which is, hey, I need to make performance gains. And that's where I think a strength and conditioning coach that's specialized in that sport is really the best thing. And we kind of all go in this cycle depending on where and what that athlete needs. Is that the same thing that you think with nutrition, or how do you really create those good symbiotic relationships so that we can really impact and do great things for our clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say that I have a friend who's a nutritionist, and I adore her, but outside of that, I don't have many other nutritionist friends, because a lot of them, what I've seen, have been very scary informations. You know, a lot of them are like MLM companies who like tag and, you know, do something, you know, with that. So for me, I have my bachelor's of science in nutritional science. You know, I had to do a year-long internship after that, you know, pass an exam. So there's a lot of schooling involved in that. And then, you know, all this you know, 75 hours continuing education every 5 years. So, I mean, we have a lot. And so what dietitians are trained in is to be able to interpret laboratory results. So we're able to interpret labs and actually kind of see what's going on with someone's body, and be able to make recommendations from the food based on that, what's going on. The way I work is I like to like reverse engineer, kind of see where things kind of happened, find out disease states, and help kind of repair the body in a disease state kind of form, and get your body, you know, to the best it can be, even if that disease is still there, or if we can maybe come off medication. That's another goal that I have. Where I see nutritionists kind of come in, it's a lot of calorie counting, macronutrients, whereas I'm micronutrients, phytochemical, you know, the science aspect of things. Most people kind of skim the surface and just focus on calories. I could care less about calories, to be honest. Like, I am not a calorie counter. I have never like loved anything about that. And I can still get my clients 3 to 5 pound weight loss without counting calories, by teaching them to have the power behind, the properties of the food, the actual, like starting to like understand what the food possesses, so that way they can, be able to help them out. So I think that the main difference with nutritionists and dietitians is that it's very surface level with nutritionists. And like I said, I'm saying this very blanket statement.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. There are some, nutritionists who have a master's in nutritional science, who never went to become a dietitian.
Yep.
So there are some gray areas where I can't categorize everyone, but when you see people that are like, oh, I'm a holistic health coach, or I'm a nutritionist, and they talk about this nutrition, we have to be very careful. Like I said, I've had a lot of clients come to me, actually get worse from seeing a nutritionist, because of the advice that they're giving is just not, it's like, oh, well, if you're not losing weight, we'll just restrict more calories. Just restrict more calories. And they're like, I'm eating 600 calories a day. How do I eat less? And I'm like, oh, your body's into starvation mode. That's why you're not losing weight. Like,
yes.
There's a science behind this. And I think that that's where a lot of nutritionists kind of miss. It's like, oh, I've learned the basics, but unless you understand how everything's little connected, especially if you're dealing with someone who has hormones out of whack or is on medication, because we're trained in medication, knowing that like certain medications cause, gut health issues. Like if you're on a reflux medicine, it's going to disrupt your bacteria in your gut, or, certain medications are going to cause like a folic acid to be low. So like, it's more in depth. I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, no, but I think that that's great. So for the consumers that are
Mm-hmm.
kind of listening, because again, like we talked about with the FDA, like we're talking about, there is so much information. I mean, it is almost information overload. Like you can go to Google and find 10,000 things and 100,000 practitioners. And really like, it's so hard because we expect people, just general people, to be able to know these things. And they have no idea. Like they have no idea that I went to school for 7 years and then studied for 5 years to sit for my specialty exam. Like they don't know that. They don't know the continuing education that we do. And so also like sometimes they know that they want to be healthier. So they are, trying to take that step forward, but they don't understand, okay, well, this nutritionist here is $50 a month, and this dietitian over here is $250 a month. Well, I'm not ready for that big investment. That also seems like it's a bigger jump. Like I'm going to have to do more work over there, or I'm not that bad off. I don't think I need the $250. When they don't realize that honestly too, like going to see somebody like you, or for physical therapy, coming to see somebody like me, I mean, we screen people out in the beginning. So if you don't need that much intensity,
Correct.
we are able to kind of back that off. But if we start to see in your screen all these things, all these medications that you're on, all these other lab results, comorbidities, all these things, then we can piece together as intense or least intense plan that you really need that works with your lifestyle. I think that that's important for people to understand. That's where our education comes in.
100%. Yeah. And that's one of the things that like recently I spoke to a business group, and I was like, that's one of the things, like my business totally changed once I went from I'm going to come from the heart and not from the money,
Yes.
like, and, I've always come from the heart, but when, that little focus of like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure like I have my income this month, like running your own business, that it happens. And once I went from that switch to, wow, like I'm really here, like I know I can impact you. Like I'll have like, okay, if you can only do a 30-minute session, at least let's get this like going. So at least you have some groundwork to go, versus you going 2 months without anything. And then the thing about, with our nutrition is that our bodies are connected, one thing connects to the other. So you're more than likely, the longer you wait, going to have another issue come up from like something else broken before, like, or something
Yes.
beforehand. So more things will come your way the longer you wait. And so That's kind of my thing. I'm like, let's figure out a way to get you in now. And if it can't be the full like 2 months, then that's fine. Let's at least start getting these pieces rolling so that way you have an idea of like a blueprint, basically, of the steps that you need to start following.
Do you feel like in general that I'll kind of speak to just Americans in general, because obviously that's where we both work. So that makes just a little bit more sense than most of the people that are listening. I have a few international people, but most of the people listening are from the US. Do you feel like in general that people have more dysfunction than what they're aware of? Like that they have more of these underlying things and lab test results that really they didn't realize, or is maybe even surprising to the medical community, a lot of these small micro things going on?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I hear is when I ask like how's your gut health? Oh, it's really good. And then I get down into the like pooping question. I'm like the pooping queen. Like I talk about poop frequently because I worry about what's going in and how it's coming out, and that tells me a lot. So once we start talking about their bowel movements and what, I'm like, oh, girlfriend, no, that's not good. That's not normal, you know? And so a lot of the times that we think like, oh, I poop every 3 to 4 days. And I'm just like, ooh, no, we got to be pooping more than that. Or when they tell me something and it's like the weird consistency, I'm like, okay. So that's typically what I hear is the number one thing is they think their pooping is normal. But then when we kind of get into it, it's like, no, we got some gut health repair. And that's, I would say 9 out of 10 of my clients that come, like, we have to tackle that gut first, and then we can start focusing on other stuff because it's that stress. We're living in this state of stress now. And so we have to repair that gut. So yeah, there's a good amount, but majority of it is the gut issue.
I feel like probably everyone listening is like me. And I don't want to talk about poop. Like, I don't poop. I don't know about anyone else, but that just doesn't happen for me. No, just kidding. But
oh no, I used to be like, I'd come around and be like, I'm on poop patrol. Let's see how everyone's doing, you know?
No, freaks me out, Nicole. Freaks me out. So I gotta get more open about that. I'm gonna work on it. That'll be a 2021 New Year's resolution.
There you go. Talk about poop.
But I mean, I do think though, like it is very interesting. I know that the Chris Kresser Institute, they did this whole series. One of my friends is going through and doing their health coaching, and they did this whole thing in the Institute where you could send in like take pictures of your poop every day and post it in this like long running like messenger chat. And then they would have like their functional medicine doctors come on and like analyze whether your poop was normal.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm like, that's disgusting. Oh my gosh. But again,
it's funny, but it is helpful.
Yes.
It really does tell us a lot. It really does tell us a lot. So, I mean, I ask so many questions, and it's the same thing. Like, and we get on these calls, and like the eyes are the same thing. Like you did it, I'm just like, I'm used to it. I'm an open book too. So I'll tell people, oh yeah, when I eat something like this and da da da, you know, and they're just like, what? I'm like, you have to be learned. Like you have to be in tune with your body. So like I know that like if I'm a little bit more stressed, like my stool is going to be even though I know, but my stool will be like, all right, Nicole, we need up some probiotics, you know, let's get a little bit more on board here. And we need to start to refocus on something else. So it's a great like tool to like guiding you on how you're doing too. So, I mean, it's different, but
well, I think it's really interesting because I think that, and then I'm reading a book called In the Flow, which is about women's cycle and how our hormones fluctuate over a 28-day cycle rather than 24 hours like males. Mm-hmm. And so, but that is another kind of taboo subject. And what she talks about in that book is that if you pay attention to your cycle, if you pay attention to how you feel in the different areas of your cycle, and then whenever you actually have your menstrual cycle, really paying attention to what that is like, you can unlock your health so quickly because like you said, you're getting more in tune with your body. But I think just logistically, we've been taught to ignore our bodies, period. Like whether it's poop or your cycle or whatever it is, or even in the gym, like you walk in and you're fatigued, Like, what is the thing that all these motivational quotes tell us? Like, go hard or go home, like, shut it down and get in the zone. And like, is there a time and place for that? Yes. But we as a general population are doing that way too much. We are
Mm-hmm.
ignoring emotional trauma. We're ignoring like nutritional deficits. We're ignoring how we feel every day, our stress levels. And because we've normalized being unhealthy, I think that's really sad for all of us.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's too like a badge of honor. A lot of us like, oh, I'm on my second cup of coffee,
Yep.
like, like, or, and it's just like, I showed this picture and, oh, well, and there's so many, on social media going like, man, I didn't feel good, but then here's this product that's helped me make me feel better.
Yep.
And so it's just like, we want this like quick fix, like we're in this quick fix world that if we aren't on our game, we feel like we're failing, because we didn't get that quick fix. So yeah, it's difficult, but like you mentioned, with when you listen to your body, it's so powerful. Like I'll do something what's called seed cycling for a lot of my clients who have hormonal issues, like low estrogen, high progesterone, or something kind of going on. And that's one thing I'm like, okay, when we start, the milled flaxseed and sunflower seeds here, and you're going to use sesame seeds when you start to ovulate. And they're like, well, how do I know when I'm ovulating? And I'm like, you don't know when you're ovulating? Like, how do you not know? Like, I can feel when I'm ovulating. I know the difference that's going on in
Uh-huh.
that. Unfortunately, I get cysts on, I only ovulate for some reason on my right side. So I get cysts, so I can feel it, but I'm like, okay, but I can still tell, like, sometimes it's like, there's not a cyst there and there might not be. And I'm like, you should still know what's going on.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's crazy that like people just walk around and they're just like, no, this is normal, or I'm cramping and it hurts really, really bad. And I'm like,
Yep.
cramping is not normal. You should not be in like, that's not a
Exactly.
normal thing.
This is which anybody that's kind of watching us on YouTube, but this is like the My Flow app, and it's only $1.99. And it also, like, as you go through, you can enter your symptoms, and then it will actually help you pick out foods, and it will actually tell you if your cycles are like lining up, because there's certain things that you'll feel between different things. It's really interesting. And then
It is.
he also talks about like different types of workouts. So this is kind of routing back to what you were saying in the beginning, is sometimes we are gaining weight or holding on to weight, and we're working so hard. Like, you're like, my calories are restricted down to 900 calories a day. Like, I am working out twice a day for an hour, sweating like so much, burning all these calories, and you're not losing any weight. And you're like, what is going on? And so she really talks about, again, honoring how you're feeling as those hormonal levels come up and down, that you need different types of workouts to manage that hormonal change.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I will tell people that come to me with either really bad wrecked gut, the adrenal fatigue, or a thyroid. I'm like, all right, for the next month or two, we're doing yoga. We can do some walks. You can maybe do some like light swimming or something like that, but we're not doing like hardcore, like anything. We have to honor that your body is going into this like out of freak out mode and into repair mode. But a lot of the times, like with the calorie restriction, the analogy I like to think of, and I tell everyone, is like a bear hibernating, right? When a bear hibernates, he's not eating anything for all winter, so his metabolism slows down to conserve that energy. And so that's what happens a lot of times when we are cutting our calories and we're trying to make weight, or we're trying to cut ourselves, in the sense of like getting more toned. That's the concept is that your body's like, oh, I haven't been eating enough. I'm exerting more calories and burning more than I'm like bringing in. I need to slow down my metabolism because I'm in this like survival mode now. I need to like hold on to this energy because I'm not receiving enough for my output that I'm doing, So I'm just like, just think of a bear hibernating. He goes all winter long without eating to conserve his energy. That's what our body does. It goes through the same kind of concept. So yeah, it's crazy and that's why I said like, it's really important to know, okay, calorie restriction has its time and place, but for extended long periods of time, or if you're in a state of stress, it's going to backfire for you 100%.
Yes. Yeah. So you talked a little bit about as we went through, and we were talking about poop, not to come back to that because, that's a subject I like to avoid still. But you talked about, increasing probiotics. So can you talk to us? We talked a little bit about the FDA, and I think it's important to, again, consumer knowledge. Like, that's my goal with this podcast, is to really help people understand what is real and important that's out there. So the FDA does not regulate supplements. So can you talk to us a little bit about how to make good supplement choices? Some people, I feel like, don't supplement at all. Some people are over here and they're taking, 25 pills a day, and getting a lot of synthetic protein, a lot of synthetic collagen, all of that kind of stuff. Where do you really fall on that? And what are maybe your top 2 or 3 most important supplements, or companies that you work with?
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's great. It is super tricky because, like you said, the FDA does not regulate these supplements, and so it's a slippery slope that a lot of us can go down if we are just buying whatever we want. If we're going to GNC or on Amazon and just getting the best kind, like I had a client recently, I have a dispensary that I use, that I make recommendations for my clients because I know that these have been studied more. They're better quality. And so she goes, I feel like you're trying to make money off of me. And I was like, I'm not trying to make money off of you for doing this. I'm trying to make sure that this lady had no period. She had, and her gut was wrecked. I'm like, I want you to feel normal, and you can go try those probiotics, off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
However, the amount that you're needing, the quality that you're needing. So like all probiotics, and that's one of them that I like for everyone to be on, is a probiotic, because of the state of stress that most of us are under. And we typically, even eating fermented foods typically isn't enough probiotics to kind of repopulate and do what it needs to do. And so basically, if we're going on these, getting these, because they've been studies that even like Whole Foods had ground up rice in some of their supplements, canola oil instead of fish oil into their stuff. So, you even think that some of these big companies, these big, they're healthy, can actually be deceiving and misleading as well. And so do I have certain brands that I constantly go to? No, because they're always different things are kind of changing and everyone's different. So there's certain probiotics that are great for vaginal health. There's certain probiotics that are great for specific kinds of stress, so I customize them basically what's going on with them. So to also find those certain strands of it. So that's why I have this dispensary that I can go through and figure out, okay, what kind of like strands of these probiotics do I want this person to have, and what quantity do I want them to have? Because I prescribed this last week 100 billion CFUs, which is like the measurement for probiotics. When you go to the store, they're about 2 billion, and so 100 billion is a big difference.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so there's that discrepancy. But if you're trying to do one, by yourself, and you're like, okay, I'm not ready for a dietitian or a doctor yet, I want to go to the stores. My best thing to tell you is that you want a company that, if you can look online, that has done some studies that aren't their own study, that they didn't study it themselves. If you can see that it has some third-party research behind it. And it's kind of hard to figure out how to go about, but you can kind of look through that as well, or reach out to a dietitian. That's kind of our thing, or a pharmacist. There's plenty of holistic pharmacists out there as well that are really, really smart with all of that regulations. So I would say probiotic is kind of the number one. Vitamin D is another one. I say most people are needing a supplement of vitamin D as well. And then I guess the third one, if I could say 3, I'm going to put 2 into that category.
Perfect. We can do 4. I'll allow it.
Yes. Ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb that is really, really powerful for allowing the cortisol level, instead of these like high spikes and drops throughout the day. It allows the nice like fluctuations that your body, so it allows your body to adapt to stress, so you don't have these big like spikes and lows. It's a really potent antioxidant, and it's been studied for thyroid health. It's been studied for Alzheimer's and dementia prevention. It's been studied for cancer. It's a really cool supplement that I love how I feel when I take it. And then the other one I would say is something, not a vitamin or a mineral, but a nootropic. So it's a medicinal mushroom. So medicinal mushrooms are really, really powerful. Some that you might enjoy are like cordyceps. Cordyceps are mushrooms that actually can make help the body make ATP, which is our energy center. And so if you want to have like a pre-workout, get some mushrooms, some cordyceps and some beet powder. And beets are really great for, some nitric oxide to open up the blood vessels to allow for more blood to go to the muscles. And so you get like the little combination of that. But going back to the mushrooms, there's so many other mushrooms. Like in my, I make a turmeric latte every morning. In my turmeric latte, I did lion's mane mushroom this morning for cognitive. So that way I was aware and like be able to get on my game for this.
That's why you're crushing this podcast right now.
So there's all kinds of different mushrooms and medicinal that you can use. It's really cool. I can go through all the different ones, like reishi for calming. So there's all sorts of different ones that you can get, and it's fun. So I would say those as a blanket statement for most people, and they need to be customized for what's going on with you. So that's why I don't really mention much of anything else, because it's hit or miss. It's based on what you're needing.
Which is exactly why we're saying, like, as consumers, make sure that you're getting some sort of assessment. And it's not just like body weight, body fat. Like, there is way more in depth that you can figure out why your body is reacting the way it's reacting, whether it's a feeling, a symptom that you're having, whether it's weight gain, weight loss, whether it's how much muscle mass you're retaining. Like, there are things underneath that surface that need to be dug out just to make sure that your body responds optimally to the things you're putting into it.
And if you're over supplementing, you can actually you can over supplement. And if you're getting it synthetically, you're going to get a lot of additional additives into that. And that can actually cause, there's the chemical stress that can disrupt hormones. So that can be a part of the reason why you're not feeling as good. You're like, I'm taking all these supplements. And I'm like, we need to back off.
Yeah. Well, man, I could sit here and talk to you forever. You have been a wealth of knowledge. I hope I definitely took some notes as we were going, but I think some of the biggest things that you've said, I just want to recap some points for people and kind of you can add on to if you need to. But point number one being understanding your underlying health first. There's a place for calorie reduction, calorie increases. There's places for macros. There's places for increasing your fat and all these different things that are kind of the fad things that go on. But first, you have to understand if your health and your body is even in a place to have those things going on. So it's a really good place to start with a registered dietitian. If you are taking any medications, if you have any comorbidities, if you have any significant symptoms that are affecting your life, start with a medical provider first, because you're going to get leaps and bounds ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. Anything else kind of with that?
No, that was a great little synopsis, right? I like it.
And then really understanding what you're putting into your body. So whether there is whole foods that you need to be eating and consuming, and then there's also supplementation, and that should all be individualized based upon your lifestyle, your activity level, and like your lab draws and what that looks like. So making sure, because some people can have a reaction to one type of food, and then that might be what Sally over here needs every single day. So making sure that you really, again, understand that individuality, although we had some great ideas on supplements with vitamin D, a probiotic, and then some other kind of mushrooms and cortisol level regulators. So you guys can go and listen to all of that portion as well. And I think the last and the biggest thing that I really took away from this whole entire thing is this understanding that you do not have to feel like crap. Like, we have all of the power in our body. Like Nicole said, we are electro beings, I guess is what I should say. I don't know if that's right. But we are made up of electrical currents and processes that are happening all the time. And we are amazing in the fact that we have evolved as human beings. But the way that we evolved was being in tune with our bodies, and our bodies being in tune with nature and the cycles of nature. So get outside, listen to your body, and do the things that it needs. And if you have no idea because you haven't listened to your body for like 30 years like me, then get with someone to help you start that process. It's essential, not just for your life, but for the life of your kids, for the life of everyone that's around you. When you start making these little changes and they see how good you feel, they're going to start asking you questions. And if you can lead them in the right direction, that's really how we change what the world is consuming and making sure it's good quality knowledge.
100%. I agree.
Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you and how can people work with you? Tell us a little bit about your programs.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at nutritionsmylife.com. And I'll send you all that information so you can upload that. But yeah, I hang out on Instagram a lot, do a lot of Instagram stories. I have my own podcast, which you will be a part of as well. And right now I have, because of this lovely pandemic that we're in, I have a buy one, get one free deal going on that you can buy a 1 hour session and get a 1 hour session for free. So you can keep that 1 hour session for yourself, or you can even gift it to a friend or a family member. Because I think that right now, this is kind of the time where we really need to be focusing on how can I get my immune system working at its best so I can have a chance of fighting this if I do end up getting something. So that's what I wanted to do, to be able to gift a little bit more, spread the love a little bit more. So there is that going on. But yeah, you can find me anywhere. Nutrition's my life.
Awesome. Well, we will link that up in the show notes too, guys. Make sure that you follow along. And I think that's incredible. Those of you out there that have a business, so I know that there's a lot of CrossFit gyms that listen. People are really struggling right now to find ways to keep their communities together. So because their communities need to stay together. So when those doors open back up to their businesses, people can come in. This is a really great thing that Nicole is offering. Like, get one for yourself or buy one for a member, and then also gift them another one, and maybe make it some sort of challenge that those people can show their changes over time. This is honestly most likely probably going to last a lot longer than any of us would like. And so the more things we can do like this and take advantage of other small business owners that are doing great things, the collaborations, I keep saying this, but if you guys start looking around in your communities, looking around at what businesses are doing and who is showing up and who is doing great things, this is the time to see if these are really businesses and organizations and gyms and even other people that you want in your life. Because the people that are showing up as their best selves right now and are really heading in and doing everything that they can, those people are people that you're going to want to keep around for a lifetime. Because imagine what they're going to do for you when things are normal or when things are really good. Because this is who they truly are. Our true selves tend to show up in stress. So those people that are doing the best things, really reach out to them and be a part of them. And Nicole is definitely one of those. I end every podcast the same way. So besides your poop advice, if you could leave one piece of advice for people that you really believe would change their life, what would that piece of advice be?
That you have the power within you to change any situation. That power is within you. It's in your mind. It's in your body. You have the power to conquer anything.
That's awesome. You guys do. Thank you, mobility athletes, for tuning in today. And don't forget, I am an athlete, and today your best is enough. And we will catch you guys all again soon. Have a great day.